Blackberries hatch, chiming up my window. Blackberries hatch, reaching with a thorn. My head though goes with the blackbird song. I must move on.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask Shane. You're going to love this question. I really believe you're going to love this question. This question has come in actually via consultation. It was some questions that were asked, and I thought to myself, they're really important to share. So, lady looks at me and says to me, "So Shane, what is the key to your happiness? What makes a good life? And is happiness just a word?" And I thought about it, and it's a good point, you know, what keeps us happy and healthy as we go through this life? So none of what I'm about to share with you has come overnight. Know that it's not come overnight. It's not just happened. It's not something that you just kind of decide upon on a Friday and you find on a Monday. Okay, it certainly hasn't come overnight. It's come over time. And you know, for me, sometimes when I look back, you know, I most definitely have learned at times the hard way. You know, those lessons, you know, life has a funny way of teaching us lessons. When there's something that we need to learn, something that we need to work on, the same situation will continue to repeat itself until we either kind of learn that lesson or even find a healthier way of dealing with that particular situation. I'm recently writing about that on our Facebook page, Spirit Meets Adventure. Links are within the video. But what I've come to discover, there are some things that I now completely live by, and I completely live by them now because I have learnt them over time, and as I say, in some cases I've learnt the hard way. You know, sometimes those lessons are very powerful. As a lady commented on Facebook and says, sometimes, you know, that slap on the hand is really, really hard. And with that, you know, we don't forget the lesson that it's brought, and at times they can create, you know, substantial change. As I say, these are some of the things that I completely live by now, and have learned, and in doing so they have totally transformed me and my life. As many of you know, I learned to walk again. You know, there's been a huge deep transformation, and they have been truly life-changing. And at the heart of it, I feel there is some old as the hills practical wisdom on just how to build a fulfilling yet a simple life, and to me that's key, the simplicity. So this is going to be a kind of practical, fairly short insight where I'm going to share with you 5 or so points on what we really need to kind of explore, maybe even know, to create a sustainable happiness within our life. And that's the key word, sustainable. Okay, something that can be sustained and something that becomes consistent. Okay, it's not just fleeting, it not just comes and goes, it's not defined by how others are with us. Okay, and then at the heart of it is a sense of leadership as well. I think the challenge for most of us is that we may not have always understood what it takes to be happy, not on a deep level, not at least. And at times, maybe most of us, and I'm going to share more about this in a moment, maybe most of us are chasing the wrong things, and I'm going to share with you a very, very short story that really kind of echoes that or really reinforces that. you know, happiness, I absolutely believe is more than an idea. It is more than a concept, and it's absolutely more than just a word. So let's kind of explore that. You know, I'm going to give you those key points. These are the key points I've discovered along the way. As I always say, it doesn't mean that I'm crystal clear right, but these are the things that have worked for me. And most importantly, they're going to come from that place of direct experience. I think you're going to really enjoy them, and here they are. Okay, when it comes to people, okay, this is something that I've really learned along the way. Steer clear from complicated or destructive. Steer clear away from complicated or destructive and self-destructive. People have said to me, okay, Shane, but how does that fit into the work that you do? You know, you're a healer, you heal with words. Holistic mediumship is very therapy orientated. So how does that fit in to your world? What I'm really talking about here is that, you know, it goes back to that thing that someone said to me a while ago, you know, do you help people, Shane? Is that what you do? You help people? And they're almost telling me that's what I do. And I remember kind of sitting there with a twinkle in my eye, and I smiled and I looked back at them very kind of seriously, and I said to them, no, I don't help people. What I do is help people to help themselves. Okay, so when it comes to the complicated people, or destructive people, or self-destructive, I know that I cannot rescue them. Okay, I absolutely know that I cannot rescue them, and that's something I've learned going back in my life, a long time, that I cannot rescue them and I cannot heal them. It's their journey. It's about sometimes creating the environment for that to happen, but most importantly, the want and the need and the motivation needs to be there from within themselves. Okay, so when it comes to the complicated, the destructive and the self-destructive, know that you cannot heal them. It's their journey. Okay, and in many ways it has to be this sense of the need and want needs to be there. So I steer clear. Step 2, tip 2, concept 2, if you like, is I know who I am. Okay, having a good, strong, solid sense of self. Okay, know who you are. You know, for me that's really important. Knowing where my values lie, where my values sit. And that kind of again connects to kind of step 1 is, you know, I'm somebody that doesn't tie shoelaces. I teach people to tie their own. Okay, so for me it's not about tying shoelaces, it's about teaching people to tie their own. Okay, so that's part of my values. It's what sits right with me. It's about empowering people rather than doing it for them. It's about teaching people to kind of grow their own food rather than feed them. So understanding where my values sit, and I stay close to that. I never abandon myself for another. So I never abandon myself for another. I never give up on myself for another. Okay, those lessons have been extremely powerful. I've learned extremely the hard way, you know, because sometimes when you are of the ilk that we are, you can be sensitive by nature, you can be empathic by nature. You can find it extremely hard to say no. You don't want to give up on someone, so you give up on yourself. You know, so these are very powerful lessons. Step 3, I keep it all simple. Nowadays, I absolutely keep it all simple. You know, and that kind of ties in step 2 and step 1, you know. Complicated or destructive, self-destructive is not simple by nature. You know, I keep it all simple. I absolutely recognise, and I have done for many years now, but extremely in the years of learning to walk again, and going through the journey of rehabilitation and cycling being a part of that, and in the adventure cycling, that I realised that I have simple wants. You know, I'm happy around simple living, simple needs, simple wants. I keep it all simple, and I kind of at that level place myself around people that have the same kind of values and the same ethos, and I place myself around people that have some heart. You know, I remember meeting this guy in the middle of the mountains in Scotland who had been on the road around about 7 months, and I said to him, "Where are you heading?" And he said to me, "Destination unknown." And I never forget that. You know, it's about, you know, those people that have heart and grit about them. And I guess at the heart of that is I cannot do superficial. You know, I'm looking for, I align myself to things that have heart and foundation and substance. And at the heart of that is simple living. You know, would I want to go to a real huge fancy glitzy ritzy restaurant, or would I be more at home sitting on a hilltop with a few people eating bread and cheese and having a glass of cider? You know, it's just, you know, it's not to say the other is wrong, it's just knowing where you align yourself and what's important to you as a person, as an individual. So I keep it all simple, simple wants, simple needs, simple living, placing myself around people that have some heart, grit about them, and I guess, as I say, I can't do superficial. Step 4, really important one for me. Again, it's very simple. I get out on the bike. Okay, I exercise most days, from fairly long to fairly short in time. It's fresh air. Also, you know, something I've learned over time that is so very vitally important, especially during the winter months. It releases all the good chemicals within the body, serotonin, dopamine. You know, it's triggering all those good chemicals in the body. You know, those of you who have felt tired and you've gone off and you've exercised, you know, you'll know that you always feel better the other side of the exercise. People have commented and said to me lately, you know, there's a shine about you, Shane. You look younger, you look really, you know, kind of healthy. There's a glow about you. Well, it's during the summertime. I'm out so often on the bike, and this last winter, I remember looking at myself and thinking, oh God, really pale. And that's because I wasn't out. I didn't cycle as much. And it's something that I'm going to really kind of remember as I move into this winter, that, you know, how I feel right now. So yeah, I get out on the bike most days, fresh air, releasing those good chemicals, and most importantly, it gives me the time and space to think things through. So it allows me to work things through. You know, you've always no doubt heard that saying is, well, maybe you just need to sleep on it. And what you're doing is giving yourself some time. So you're giving yourself some time to come to the answers, to arrive at the answers. And, you know, good friends that I cycle with, and they you know, they say, you know, what it does is it kind of just strips everything else away, and kind of drops you back into self, and therefore the answers stir up. You know, it's giving it the space. Step 5, above all else, I respect myself. Okay, I respect myself, and that's come over time. So I respect myself, I believe, more fully, and from that comes respect for others. Okay, I know what's acceptable and what isn't. You know, and it also means from that place, that I'm truthful regardless of where that truth sits. You know, so I kind of find myself around people, and that includes the most incredible people that I get to work with as well, that I'm able to absolutely be sometimes kind of brutally honest with them with a huge amount of love and compassion, but brutally honest with them because it best serves them. Okay, it best serves them. So regardless of where that truth sits, and for me that's the nuts and bolts of it, is having an honest relationship with self and then the world around you. Most importantly, I protect myself and my time. What I mean by that is I really value myself and my time, my space, and those important to me. And I keep it simple. It's either working or it's not. Okay, so it's either working or it's not. And if it's not, then I'm off. That's not always been my way, but it has for several years now. And I can remember, I'm going to share two very short stories with you. I can remember a time where, and I have shared this before, where I'm walking on crutches out of the hospital, and I got back onto my feet from where I was. I couldn't walk, to being on crutches, and the lady said to me, physiotherapist, do you want to take the wheelchair or do you want to take the slow and long walk, Shane? And I took the slow and long walk, determined, stubborn possibly, but I can remember standing there after some time, standing there at the entrance of the hospital, closing my eyes and just feeling the sunlight on my face. I closed my eyes and I took a breath, and I said to myself, from this moment on, I will not waste another minute of my life. I will strive to always remind myself of that, and most days I do. You know, there are times where I do forget, and you allow, and you kind of just drop back into that, but generally most of the time I remind myself of that. And that was a very powerful commitment. You know, I went from a place of not being able to walk, and it was like a second chance, and I just stood there, closed my eyes and said, from this moment onwards, I will never ever waste a single minute. And most days that's the absolute truth. And it's very powerful. And that motivates all of what I just shared with you. You know, you get to a point where your tolerances change. You just don't want to kind of put up with that BS anymore. You value yourself more. You kind of find some pride in how far you come and who you are. You know, you also see the value that you have in yourself, and how that value then impacts the world around you. You know, and they're really important things. You know, self-love, self-respect is the heart of so much, and I think that's what causes so many problems within our lives. And I think it's something that actually from a young age should be nurtured in us, and in a way taught, and somewhere along the line it's kind of gone wrong. You know, we're having to reset and reevaluate. The other important kind of very short story I want to share with you is, some people say, you know, you've heard that saying, money can't buy you happiness, and this really reinforces this. Is I had a gentleman come see me, and the gentleman was highly successful. The gentleman was a millionaire and plus, hugely successful man. And I kind of looked at him, and I could feel this level of self-made success to a high level. You know, he wouldn't have wanted for anything financially, but yet I looked at him and I thought, he's really empty, he's really lost, he's also feeling really fragile, and I would say he's kind of quite scared. And his dad come through, and what I picked up was that he was very kind of lonely. He had in a way isolated himself without realizing he had done it. Picture this, highly successful man, he's coming into his huge house that he owns, and his wife is in the kitchen, his older children are in the lounge, and he walks past both rooms, takes himself to the back of the house, and he sits in his study and he continues to work. And his children are forming their own lives, and they really haven't had a kind of relationship with him, and his wife has learned to live her own life because he's not been there. And I kind of identified all that, and he said, you're absolutely correct. I said, well, that's making you hugely miserable. I said, what you need to do, you need to go home, you need to walk up to your wife in that kitchen, you need to give her a real big squeeze. You need to give her a big squeeze. Well, his dad turned around and says, you need to give her a big squeeze and you need to grab hold of her. Okay? And he laughed, and he actually went home and he done that. And he wrote to me a little while after, and he said this. He said to me, I've done exactly what you told me to do. Well, I've done exactly what my dad told me to do. And she was completely shocked, grabbed hold of me. We ended up spending the weekend upstairs in bed. He said, with all that to one side, he said, one of the things that really kind of struck a chord with me, he said, was that he fell asleep with her lying on his chest, and he says, I could not remember the last time that happened. He said, and I remember waking up and us cuddling up together and she was lying on my chest. He said, that's something I won't forget for such a long time. He said, and over that weekend we laughed, we talked, we cried. He said, we like reverted back to teenagers. But one of the important things, he said, it was in the middle of the night and it was raining. You could just hear the rain outside and we were talking. And she turned to me and she said, none of this was important. What I've always wanted was you. That's what I fell in love with, and that's what I wanted. And we've ended up so far away from that. She said, I would have eaten just beans and fish fingers if I could have had you. And the kids, all they've wanted to do is share with you and tell you about their schoolwork and their friends and all those adventures that they've had. But we've got another chance. And he said to me, you know, he'd built several successful businesses. He said that he had looked into selling two of them off, and what he said, and this is the key to it, what he said was, I'm now about to simplify my life, which is going to allow me to be able to reconnect with those around me. You know, so lots in there, lots to kind of stir up, lots to think about, you know. And he said to me, he said, think about this. And this is what I took from it as well, and it was such a gift from him. He said, think about this. He said, I've come to see you twice. So he come to see me twice. He said, my investment was £90. My investment to you was £90. He said, but through my dad's advice and guidance and the perspective that was shared, it actually turned around a lifetime of marriage. And that was the greatest investment, he said, that I've ever made in this lifetime. He said, so for you, Shane, don't ever underestimate the value that you can bring to others. And that was a profound gift for me. It made me realise that, you know, our words that we share with others, the impact that we can leave with others sometimes can be far greater than what we realise. And some of, you know, what I took from that is what I'm also sharing with you now. Okay, it's about knowing what we value the most, and what is absolutely important. And I remember saying to him, you know, if you become very unwell, what would be important to you? Well, none of that would. It would be those things that are irreplaceable. So I'm going to leave that with you. It's a longer video than anticipated. Sometimes that's absolutely the way. It certainly is for me. But I hope you found that interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments. And as always, if you have a question for Ask Shane, do drop it below. You can find all our links within the video as well. Cheers, guys. See you all soon. Bye-bye. Bye.
Blackberries hatch, chiming up my window. Blackberries hatch, reaching with